Welcome back to the JumpifyLabs Podcast, the show for founders who want growth without the guesswork. Here we talk about the systems driving predictable growth, and today's guest has spent over 2 decades building, breaking, exiting, and rebuilding companies. He's taken everything he's learned and turned it into a scalable company OS that's designed to help founders finally step out of the weeds. Damon Flowers, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Great to be on, Jay.
It's a pleasure to have you. Okay, let's kick things off. So, Damon, you've been an entrepreneur since 2002. What made you stick it through all of the failures and all of the exits?
Man, that's a great question. I think for a lot of people, we're sort of drawn to this world of wanting to create something, wanting to kind of write the rules ourselves, play by our own drum, if you will. And I know that was true for me. I left corporate America doing professional services as a consultant back in 2000, 2001, 2. And just kind of got tired of making other people money, wanting to do things that kind of buck the norm, et cetera. By the way, thought it would be pretty easy when I first left and started my first business, but turned out to be anything but.
Yeah, similar problem I hear across the board from everyone that starts their first business, because just because you can buy something doesn't mean you can necessarily sell it either. Because there's a lot of things that go involved in the marketing side and of course the fulfillment side. But as far as all the companies that you've worked with, what patterns do you start to notice across the companies that struggled versus the ones that actually scaled?
Yeah, great questions. That opens up the door for that question in different stages of business too. So that first stage, sort of that 0 to phase 1 stage, what's incredibly important is product market fit. It's selling, right? It's getting a customer. It's not stressing about how your logo looks or the fonts and colors on your website and all those various things. It's really about identifying a problem in the marketplace, testing it, talking to a lot of people, and really identifying, do I have something that the market wants? So huge in that first phase. Later, as we start to develop that product market fit, then we need to start moving into other pieces that come into the place. So from that phase 1 and on, one thing that's also very, very incredible is clarity. I like to say that clarity is the first multiplier. And what do I mean by that? That means clarity about what we're focused on, for instance, this next quarter or this next year. Clarity around who we serve as our customer. What's their ICP? What's the brand avatar, right? Really getting inside of the customer's head or the prospect's head. So clarity is also a really big piece that needs to be identified. We can unpack this further, but it does sort of evolve and unfold, as time goes on, and our company hopefully makes it, and we continue to stick around and now really start to grow.
I want to give you a moment to talk about your company, Modern Operators. How is it different from traditional consultants?
Yeah, great question. So maybe a little quick blurb about how Modern Operators came about, so people kind of sort of why we're doing what we're doing. Over the last 20 plus years, I've started, failed miserably, exited, licensed multiple companies in multiple different niches, from SaaS to real estate, private lending, e-commerce, training and coaching, etc. And for me, I really just became a student of business and a student of life. I love learning what works, what doesn't, why some things come easy, some things don't, and how to really kind of understand myself and how I fit in things, and then ultimately understand kind of how to unfold and learn through this vehicle called business. And it turns out, for all of us, we kind of gravitate to the things that we ultimately really love and we're really good at. And for some people, that's marketing. For some, it's sales. For some, it's maybe product design. For me, it really came down to growing and scaling companies. So I've taken 2 companies in a relatively short period of time to 8-figure exits, and really, really love the journey of transitioning from working in the business to working on the business, creating a predictable company. It's sustainable, low risk. It works without the founder, without the founding team involved in the day to day. And so after my last exit, I took a little time off, but then decided that I wanted to codify all of the frameworks and the playbooks and the principles that I learned over years and years and years into a system that would enable other business owners to start to make this transition themselves. And so that's how Modern Operators came about. We've we've worked on and then since launched our company OS. Runs extensively on Notion, and that system packages together all of the frameworks, the UI, the databases, the structure to really help staff align around a common vision. It helps to build the rhythm cycles that are necessary for the founder to be able to have a team of people that now are working towards that vision with feedback loops that deliver messaging and feedback back into the company so they continue to make adjustments. And then of course layering on AI, not only with Notion, but we use several other tools and APIs to be able to layer on AI to work in conjunction with staff to be able to text to fix their productivity. And so it's been a really cool journey. Our goal is to move away. You asked the question, what makes it different from a consultant? Our journey has really been we want to move away from consulting where we can only handle, 4, 5, 6, 10 clients at a time in a pretty in-depth fashion to now being able to help hundreds and then thousands of business owners over time through, again, this OS that helps them to understand what's the right order, what's the right order with the right pieces at the right time, right? And doing that with less consulting than it would have taken previously without AI.
Yeah, I love how you productized your OS, moving it all from your brain, which does require you to be there in depth to most of your brain into a Notion doc where people can navigate, get the information as needed. What other benefits have you seen outside of just being able to scale?
So the other, I would say the big benefit is a very seasoned entrepreneur, a very experienced entrepreneur understands what decisions to make at the right time and what order to focus on things, right? When to put something off 6 months from now because it's not in the priority list today. Seasoned entrepreneur or business owner really understands how do I move from that early product market fit and having customers through stabilizing the business, building a solid foundation in the business, optimizing the business, and then and only then focused on growth and scale of the business. And so a lot of younger or inexperienced entrepreneurs get those pieces out of order. They want to focus on growth or they want to focus on scale, but maybe they don't have the right foundation in place. And so they dump more customers in and the systems and the company break. Or they're raising money, maybe through angel or VC. And then 6 to 10 months later, they've blown through that budget, right? And now are having to make some difficult decisions. So for us, it's really been about building an operating system that enables a business owner or a business team to be able to understand, okay, what's most important for us to focus on in this cycle? Maybe they're operating on a quarterly cycle. What decisions do we need to put off versus what decisions do we need to make today based on the stage that we're in? And so we're building more and more and more of that into our system so that again, business owners and teams can start to answer their own questions. They can kind of get consulted and guided 24/7 through AI because we programmed AI to coach in the way that we would coach based on the decades of experience that we've gotten, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's amazing. And I love how your OS gets founders working on the business versus in the business. But let's talk about founders who stay in the business. How does founder dependence quietly cap growth?
And that's a great question. And I love how you mentioned it too. How does it cap growth? Because a lot of business owners don't see that it actually does. It is the one thing that caps growth. We can't see what we can't see. And so if all of us we get into a habit or a pattern of how we do things, how we do life, how we do business, how we do relationships, etc. And when we can't see what we can't see, then we end up creating an environment that creates our own blocks, our own mindset blocks, our psychology blocks, how we end up showing up every day, the decisions that we make, all of that. And so this is compounded by the fact that being a business owner, being a founder, or being an entrepreneur is also a very lonely life because we can't go to our staff, right, and say, "Hey, I'm really struggling with what we're going to do." Right? We're in this situation. What do you guys think? I mean, that would send your staff kind of like, now I'm freaking out. That should I stick around, right? Or should I leave? We can't talk to our spouse because we've tried 37 times prior, and they're like, "Look, I'm done. You need to go talk to somebody else." We can't really talk to our friends because many times they're not in business. They don't really get it. And so we're kind of left in this mode to sort of figure things out on our own. So back to your question, that the mindset of a founder is deeply, in fact, the thing that holds them back from growth. They can't see the potential, for instance, of where the business could be, as an example. They don't know what to do to move from where they are to this business. If they're doing 2 million or 3 million in rev, for instance, now, how oftentimes I'll talk with business owners and they're like, I can't even see my business being at 10 million or 15 or 20 million. So not knowing the potential, not knowing how. And I think lastly, getting pulled back into the day to day, right? It's this conundrum of I need the time to get away and figure out what to do with my business to move it ahead, but I don't have the time necessary to do it. So sort of getting then stuck in this loop a quarter turns into 6 months, turns into a year, turns into 5 years kind of thing.
Yeah, sounds so much like an experience that I went through myself, and I had to realize, like, hey, something needs to change. I'm designing my life for this. I have no time to make those designs or those even implement those changes. That was something I went through back in 2020. So definitely, I can attest to that very situation which you walked us through. Okay, so your OS, it helps people to get a sense of coaching, consulting, or just an idea of where they should get to or where they can get to if they had maybe not a peer group, but just some sort of advice to help them break through their ceilings. Can you walk us through a before and after transformation of a client who has installed your OS?
Yeah. So I'll take you back to an example. We've got a client who is a nationally ranked nutritionist, and she's been a nutritionist for well over a decade, has a small team, has been, working with clients for high-end nutrition for years and years and years. Ultimately, though, over the last couple of years, she's gotten to a place where times are moving faster. More people are using AI to kind of solve somewhat of their health problems. People are taking GLP-1s, the magic pill to kind of get transformation without working with a coach. So she began to start to see shifts in her business and realize I've got to do something different. And so after installing our OS and really starting to see the power of creating alignment with her staff as to a bigger vision where she saw the company going, then with them getting on board and plugged in, being able to carve out some time there to step back and think, starting to introduce the idea of rhythm cycles. So, rhythm cycles are an incredibly important component for business owners. And what does that mean? That means not only putting together a vision for where you want your company to be in 3 to 5 years, but where do you want your company to be at the end of this year? And then where do you want your company to be at the end of this quarter for some businesses or for other businesses this month? Kind of depends on what size your business is. Developing those rhythm cycles, they almost are like gates or milestones along the way for you to step back. For instance, let's say the business is working on a quarterly cycle, step back every quarter and begin to ask the question, what did we accomplish this past quarter? What worked really well for us? What didn't work well? Right? What experiments did we try that turned out they worked and we want to continue them? What are some things we tried that didn't work and we want to move on? And then beginning to think clearly about where do we want to be then at the end of the next quarter, as an example. So introducing those types of rhythm cycles on a quarterly basis, doing the same thing on a yearly basis really starts to allow us to bubble up to the top. What are the big takeaways, the lessons that I'm learning that I want to make sure I implement back into my business to help me then become even better as a business owner, better as a company next quarter and next year? So introduce back to your question, helping her to get clear about her vision, get clear about her identity as a company, introducing these rhythm cycles, helping her team to really come into alignment with what they're focused on and what they're creating. The other big benefit of our OS is that it brings everything into one place. And what's really amazing about that is when everything is in one place, this is where we're going. This is what we're focused on this quarter. This is who we serve, our ICP, our brand. This is our brand voice, right? And then what we can do is we can start to layer AI on top of that to now AI understands your company as well as you do. And when that happens, now your marketing team can have marketing assistants that are as smart or smarter as your marketing team. The same for your sales team, the same for your product team, or the same for your coaching team. And so now we start to see exponential growth because with everything in the same context, AI having the same context in your business, it can now write automatically social media articles for you that are in your voice. It can and publish those as an example. It can build messaging and courses to be able to test, for instance, in various channels for your potential market, your prospect. It can help deliver back guidance and coaching on your sales calls, for instance, with your prospects. And so now, then, and this can happen in a pretty short period of time, typically within 30 to 60 days, we can now start to see 2 time, 3 time X productivity gains with our staff because they're able to now focus more strategically and less tactically. And that time then allows them to open up and be able to accomplish much more. So your question, she's now moved to a whole new level in business where she's got her time back, her staff are in alignment. They've got tools that are supporting the business in ways that they're blown away by, which makes them even more capable doing social media, doing outreach, understanding and getting into the mind of their prospects, which is converting into more leads, more clients booked, and now starting to think even bigger picture about launching their community, launching on different other social media channels to grow their brand even further.
Amazing. That sounds like a real transformation for sure. Now, Modern Operators is your latest venture, and you've had multiple ventures with the successful exits. With all the things that you've taken from your experience now, and then Modern Operators still being less than a year old, what would you say has surprised you the most?
What has surprised me the most? Well, I can say I used to get surprised a lot more as getting older and more experienced in business. The surprises are less and less. I typically don't like surprises. I like to build things that are very low risk that work without me. That's kind of why I got into this in the first place. I don't like working in the day to day. I'm actually quite lazy. So I like to build things that provide predictability and confidence, right, in growing. Even with years of what I've been doing, what does surprise me even lately is how people can change when money gets involved. So being a little more diligent, if I would say, with kind of trusting partners, trusting vendors, trusting affiliates. I tend to be a very trusting individual until you give me a reason not to trust. And so sometimes kind of, can maybe overstep and provide more trust than probably should be there. I've had a few surprises more recently around that very thing. And it seems like people are kind of drawn, I almost want to say, into a couple different worlds. Some people now, because of the pace of life and everything that's going on, sort of economically and politically, et cetera, are drawn into a highly competitive arena, and others are drawn into more of a collaborative arena. And competitive meaning like it's for everybody's taking. It's got to be me, focus and get what I can get. Collaborative meaning like, hey, let's work together. Let's bring our skill set together. Let's make things happen together. So I'm seeing kind of more of a little bit of a distinct camp forming, if you will, in that regard. And so maybe the thing to take away, the thing that I learned from that was to kind of continue to check in to make sure that who you're taking this journey with, that they're still on this on the same trail. And if they're not, if they're moving further and further away, then to listen to some of those red flags and not only be aware of them, but kind of work through them early on versus just hoping things work out later. That's kind of another learn, right? Is as things come up in our business or our life, we want to be able to look at them, focus on them, work through them. And sometimes that means making hard decisions about letting a relationship go or, pivoting and moving in a different direction. But, ultimately you got to listen to your heart and follow it.
Yeah, sometimes one of those really tough things to do, actually, when the evidence is in front of you and it feels inherently wrong. You went into it with a high sense of trust, which is I'm very similar as I like to see the good in people. I'm a very naturally just like a positive guy. I try not to see any faults if unless they're glaring in front of me. But yeah, sometimes you have to make a decision. And this is right for the business, is right for you ultimately. Let's talk about the ideal type of founder that would be a good fit for modern operators. Who would that person be?
So that person today is somebody who's generally doing 1 million to 10 million or so in annual revenue, but they are still stuck in the day to day. They're the glue that holds everything together, right? Their team is coming to them to get approvals or ask for advice on things. They're still entrenched in, various aspects from sales calls and doing marketing or working with the team in various capacities. They're typically not good at operations, or they've tried operations, but they tried introducing operations, but it hasn't really taken it. They've not seen progress from it. And so they're typically working in the business, right? They have ideas that they can't implement because they don't have time. They really can't take a vacation or can't step away for any length of time because then the business starts to suffer. When they do try to step away, they can't get away from their phone. They're still on Slack or email or checking things, right? And so what they've created is it's really kind of a glorified job. They might be making pretty good money. They might be making great money, but they're chained to their business. And because of that, they're not able to transition to what I call a sustainable business. A sustainable business is one that is predictable, predictable growth. I can push these buttons, pull these levers, and I can generate this outcome or this result. I can dump more money into the business and I'll get this result. I can add more people and I'll get this result. A sustainable business is one that is low risk, right? And it's one generally that a buyer will want to buy. They're not going to want to buy the business that you're stuck in all the time, right? Because then they've got to buy you, and they don't really want to buy you. They just want to buy a business that is, again, predictable. It works. They understand the dashboard and the levers and the buttons. And so they're willing to pay more money, what we call a premier exit, for that business. And so that's really the transition that we help, is to get to that place. Whether you decide to sell your business or not, having every aspect of your business dialed in so that it works without you. Your team is focused and in alignment with what the big vision is. They understand feedback and such with the business, and the business is then poised and focused on growth.
Damon, that's so good because there's a lot of people I'm speaking with that are at this crossroad. So I have a background in M&A, and in the M&A space, of course, everyone's trying to exit. But then a lot of people that I'm speaking to now, M&A is or exiting is not it's not on their radar just yet. A lot of them are in building mode. But I'm starting to have those conversations as people, find out about the podcast, who have I spoken with, the kind of guests I bring on. So yeah, that sounds like something that definitely resonate with a lot more people in my own personal circles. What's the first step someone should take if this does resonate with them?
Yeah, if it does, I would just say, reach out to us. We can hop on a discovery call and really just kind of get to know you, get to know your business, get to know where you want to go. And then really from that, we might suggest, hey, we're not the right fit, but here's what we would suggest. Everybody we talk with, we help people just as if it were our own business. What would we do if we were in your shoes? And for some, that may mean an audit. So we'll oftentimes do a very extensive audit of your company. We also will talk with numerous of your key staff, really take a look at your systems and your operations, and then provide a very comprehensive report back of like, this is exactly where you're stuck. This is exactly the phase that you're in. This is what we would focus on right now. These are the big obstacles and challenges. Here's the opportunities, and here's how we would look at it over the course of the next year and moving the business forward. And then we have others that, really know that this is where they're at and they want to make that transition. And so now we're talking about what it looks like to implement an operating system like Modern Operators, and to be able to start, moving forward faster on their journey.
That sounds outstanding. It doesn't hurt to just have a conversation, right? So
Yeah.
where should founders follow you? Where should they find you to learn about more about how you think, explore the OS, potentially get on that discovery call? Where should they go?
Yeah, so of course, modernoperators.com is our website. We just recently launched a subreddit, which is taken off really well. That's slash modern operators. We've got a newsletter that we publish every week with still a lot of thought leadership around feedback loops and cycles and what we call VTech and thinking versus doing, mindset stuff. So we really unpack a lot of the principles and the playbooks and the templates and such that are necessary for a founder to make that journey. And then on our website is the ability to set up and book a discovery call. It's free. Just book a discovery call with us and let's hop on and talk.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for sharing your resources and talking about your OS with us, Damon. If you resonate with what Damon was talking about, if you're working too deep in your business, if you don't have time, if your growth is a little bit unpredictable, Damon very kindly shared his resources. Check out modernoperators.com and hop on a call with his team. Never know where it can lead to. Damon, thank you so much for your time. And for anyone listening, if you like stories like this, if you want to hear from other founders that are driving and pushing the envelope for growth, be sure to tune in to Jumpify Labs for more. My name is Jay. Thanks so much. Take care.